with us today. In the break, I said, oh, I'm so glad we have Congresswoman Laura, because she's just going to give it to us straight. I was looking on social media, and there was all this talk from your Republican colleagues that this is a quote-unquote clean CR, i.e. it's just funding the government at the same levels. They didn't strip anything out. But if you take a closer look at the bill like you did, you noted that Republicans are zeroing out the Toxic Exposures Fund, which is the fund to care for veterans exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances. They do a $6 billion increase in defense. $13 billion, again, cuts in domestic spending. The burn pits are part of that. It foregoes $890 million in grants for healthcare facilities and equipment. It doesn't renew $40 million in funding for programs that help children and families. This does not feel like a clean CR to me, ma'am.
Well, indeed. And first of all, good morning to all of you. It's wonderful, wonderful to be with you. I'm so pleased to be in this conversation. Essentially, what has been done here, it's a blank check. It's a blank check to Elon Musk. And to President Trump, and it allows them what I call this is stealing. This is stealing taxpayers' dollars that were intended to go to American families and to businesses. Just 2 or 3 more examples when you're talking about this. Social Security, and I just saw earlier on your program, they're talking about 7,000 people, cut. They're going to fire thousands of employees. These are the folks that answer the phones. So we're going to see that people that there'll be longer wait times. Social Security offices will be closed. And that means there's a backlog and you can't access your benefits. That's what will happen. Disaster relief, for God's sakes, that funding will run out in late spring. So what happens to hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever it is? There's no money to go to people who may have lost their home, a small business that may have been put out of business. So it is the human consequences of what they're doing that really the public has got to understand. And quite frankly, they don't care about what those human consequences are right now. Veterans, you mentioned veterans. We have committed to veterans that if you were subject to Agent Orange, toxic chemicals, burn pits, that we are going to take care of your health care. So what we do, we fund that so that it is not susceptible to the year-to-year appropriations bill. We give it an advance appropriation. That's what they have cut out. That's $22 billion that they have cut out of this. So it's a blank check. We should say no without, just out of hand. It's a no.
And that echoes what we've heard from Leader Jeffries, Congresswoman, that the caucus should be a no on this. Let's say Republicans get their votes together, they kick this over to the Senate. The question then becomes whether or not your colleagues in the Senate, whether they can find about 7 Democratic votes for this. What is your message to Senate Democrats here?
Well, Senate Democrats have got to vote no as well. And I've been talking to my colleague, who's a counterpart in the Senate, to Patty Murray, and you've probably seen her comments. She is straightforward. She says no on this long-term CR and going forward, and that's what she's talking to, her Senate colleagues about in the same way I'm talking to my House colleagues.
Congresswoman, in addition to the cuts that we have seen laid out, hidden, if you will, as Simone noted, zeroed out, right? Oh, we didn't cut anything, we just didn't fund it.
Exactly.
You also have, and took note of your guest that you had at the Capitol, Julia Miller, and the impact in the other parts of the storyline on the Department of Education. Let's have a listen to what Julia had to say.
Yeah.
In New Haven, where I teach, 22 out of our 44 schools are Title I. That's just one school district. If the Department of Education is dismantled, 26 million vulnerable students would lose access to needed services. This isn't cutting blow or excess. This would be taking away resources from children in already underfunded districts like my own across the country. To me, I think we are teaching history, we are teaching reading, we are teaching important skills that young people will use for the rest of their lives. That's not controversial to me.
It should be noted that Ms. Miller is the 2025 Connecticut Teacher of the Year. Talk about the impact on our classrooms, because I don't think people fully appreciate the role of the federal government. Look, I you know, as a conservative over the years, made the case about, you know, federal dollars being spent to support in the education space, to support what the states are doing, because we fund education at the state and local level. I don't think people fully appreciate what that federal dollar does. To Ms. Miller's point, that if it suddenly is no longer there are kids who won't eat, there are kids who won't learn, there are kids who won't be able to access the ladder of opportunity to live out their American dream, if you could speak to that. Well,
Listen, I think you have just focused in on something that's so critically important. That's why I wanted Julia Miller with me. This was she's so eloquent, and she teaches civics, by the way, of how to engage in public discourse. So this is one of the worst effects of what they're trying to do. And this comes out of Project 2025, eliminate the Department of Education. But as you pointed out, Michael, the American dream, I believe that every one of us who are on this show here this morning, there are folks said to them, get an education so that you can realize your dreams and aspirations. It's certainly what my family taught me. My mom worked in the old sweatshops in the city of New Haven. She had me go there every day, and she said, you don't have to do this, get yourself an education. And they sacrificed so I could, and that's what parents do today. And what they want to do is to really dismantle public education in this country. What do we lose? You make a very good point, and people don't understand this, that it is the states that mainly fund education. The federal government deals with Title I that goes to low-income students so that they can have an opportunity. Education is opportunity, and this is providing opportunity for kids to succeed. Kids who are developmentally challenged in terms of special education, that we fund that in the IDEA program. The teachers, when you cut funding for Title I, nobody knows what Title I, but that's your child's classroom teacher. When you're dealing with Pell Grants that allow kids to be able to go to college, not every family can afford to send their kids to $80,000, $90,000 a year for education today. You know, now they want to move to private education. Mm-hmm. But what 90% of our children are in public education today. And what they want to do is to pull the rug out from under them and say, we don't care about your dreams and your aspirations. We are going to change this system so that we are not going to provide opportunity for you to be successful. I find this to be the most tragic consequence of what they're doing. Without an educated citizenry, allowing kids to reach their full potential, that's what education is about. It's about that American dream. And Horace Mann said, education is the great equalizer. Mm-hmm. It's about your God-given talent. It's the great equalizer.
One could argue that's why they are looking to attack education, because it is the great equalizer. And the more people know, the less, frankly, I think that they are willing to put up with. Let's fast forward to Tuesday. Let's just say magically all the Republicans in the House get together and they support Johnson's bill. And then when it does go to the Senate, that all the Democrats stick together in the Senate and they don't support this bill, that means that it fails. What then happens? Because yesterday we spoke with Congressman Brendan Boyle, who's the ranking member, as you know, on the Budget Committee, and he said that Democrats should actually be negotiating with Donald Trump. We want to play that for you right now.
Sure.
Any sort of agreement on any piece of legislation, I think, needs to be made with Donald Trump, because we do know that Speaker Johnson has no ability whatsoever to enforce any sort of an agreement. We saw that last December, because the reality is
we are raising our cups to you, Congressman. We're raising our cups. You're the first member of Congress I have heard say that.
Yeah, there's no question. Mike Johnson's speakership is one tweet from Donald Trump away from ending. That's the sad reality.
So that's the reality, Congresswoman. So how long? Because if this does fail on Tuesday and they try to bring it back on Wednesday and maybe again on Thursday and then Friday again, that means the government will shut down because they have failed to do their due diligence. It will be on Republicans, in my opinion. What would get Democrats to come back to the table? Is it, in fact, negotiating with Donald Trump directly?
Well, I think that Brendan as my colleague, is right in that regard. Usually they talk about four corners: House, Senate, Democrats, Republicans negotiating. But Donald Trump, Elon Musk is there. Go back to last December, my friends. We had agreed House, Senate, White House Speaker on moving forward. Elon Musk parachutes in and says to Republicans, don't vote for the bill. So we were in turmoil in terms of ultimately getting a continuing resolution passed. And I will just tell you, he did that because there was a measure in there, quite frankly, that I authored that would have put his issues in China, his conflicts of issue in China and his investments there at risk. But look, the answer to this is I don't know if they have the votes. I really don't, but I know that we need to vote against it. The Democrats in the Senate need to vote against it. What we need to do is to get back to what we were doing. And we were close to a resolution of this effort, getting the top line on defense, non-defense, and going forward so we could do 1 year bills. It's the 1 year bills that we do that puts the constraints on Donald Trump. To be unfettered in what he wants to cut and what he wants to do. That's what we have to do. But in fact, yes, if we can, I believe he wants this 1 year continuing resolution so that he can do whatever he wants. We have to try to preclude that in any way we can. Do I believe there are some of my Republican colleagues that feel the same way? Yes, but they're scared. They're scared to death to stand up.